Greetings, beautiful soul, and welcome to my channel, The Optimist Hub. My name is Yanga, and today's video, I want to talk about two of my biggest fears. Yes, you heard me. I am talking about two of my biggest fears. I know on this channel, we're all about positive vibes. It is The Optimist Hub after all, but I think it is very important for me to come and share, and I also just want to share two of my biggest fears. Look, and I've said this before, fear is not necessarily a bad thing, right? Fear is something that presents itself as a form of a protective mechanism by your brain, initiated by your brain, because it's actually trying to protect you from getting hurt. Funny enough, however, it is the fear itself that stands in our way. It's the fear itself that hinders us, that is a stumbling block, that ends up hurting us, that hurts our potential. It may not hurt us now in the current, present moment, but it is hurting your potential. The potential that is yearning to live through you, that is yearning to be expressed through you, right? And so, my biggest biggest fear is the fear of failure. Look, I've failed before, right? And I think it's the feeling of of failure that I don't want to experience, right? Look, life is really a series of, yes, choices, but it's also a series of trial and error, right? It doesn't mean because now you failed, now you need to stop, right? Pursuing whatever. I think for me, if anything, it doesn't stop me or hinder me from pursuing my purpose or my goals or my dreams. I don't want it to flop, but I understand that even if it flops, I'm then now called to, in a season, to learn more about this thing. Again, remember that failure is a first attempt in learning. Even if you're failing more than once at something, you're still being called to learn something about that thing until you have actually, learned everything that you need to learn, because life is a series of trial and error. It is university of life. Life itself is really just lessons, right? And I think for me, it's just a thing of, as much as and I think I've said this before, define what success looks like. Also define what failure looks like and what it would feel like. And I think we all know how, it feels like to fail. It's not nice, right? But what does it look like? What is it that you wouldn't have done or pursued or whatever that would now define what this failure is? For me, it's very simple. I would have failed myself, my present self right now, and my potential, my higher self, my future self, if I don't pursue my dream. I would have failed the many versions of me that live within me and that are waiting for me to live through them and for them to live through me. I would have failed them if I don't pursue whatever it is that I feel called to do and to be, to fully embody whatever my purpose is. That is, for me, that simple. Then of course, sit down and break it down and say, okay, what is it that you're not doing or that you wouldn't be doing that would lead to you not bringing this greatest or highest version of yourself to life? It's of course it's embedded in the daily habits, right? It's embedded in the daily choices and decisions and how life looks like on a daily, on a weekly, on a monthly, and yearly, right? So that's it for me. My biggest fear is not becoming the best version of myself. I would have failed myself if I don't at least try to become the best version of myself. If I don't lean into that calling, if I don't lean into that purpose, then I would have failed not only my current present self, I would have failed the inner child in me that dreamed so big. I would have failed the potential in me, the highest version of, I believe in my potential so much. More than I believe my present self sometimes. right? I'm being very candid and being very honest. Sometimes I'm just like, girl, you can do that. But in order for me to get to that future version, now I need to start trusting myself. Now I need to start believing, and I do believe myself. I do, but I actually, if we were to quantify it, I would say I believe in my potential, my highest version, 90%. Actually 100. Why 90? 100%. And I'd say my current self, I'm just like, 70%. But why? The gap, what's the gap there? The gap is the fear of failure. That's the gap right there. But I'm what? Actively bridging that gap by constantly showing up for myself, by constantly putting myself out there, by going through the stages of embarrassment or cringe, by knocking on those doors, by putting, but just really putting myself out there. This is how you bridge the gap. This is how I'm bridging the gap. But I don't know if this all of this makes sense to you, but I hope it does, right? So that is my first fear. My second fear is the fear of regret. I always think of this, and I know it may come across as morbid, but I actually there is a philosophy, I think it's called Memento Mori. That philosophy right there, which simply means remember you will die or you must die. In other words, and I think there was a chapter that I read in both the Book of Joy by Desmond Tutu, the late Desmond Tutu, Archbishop Desmond Tutu, and His Holiness Dalai Lama, as well as Jay Shetty's book. What is it called? What's that book called? The Blue Book. I'll show it on the screen here. There are chapters on that book that also talk about, sometimes not that you are attracting, but it's also something that will happen, right? It's gonna happen. We're all gonna die, right? But it's not that, it's some sort of meditation. Like, just imagine yourself on your deathbed and think of all the choices and decisions that you made. Think of all the choices and decisions you did not make. Think of all the things that you chose to pursue and those that you didn't. Think of your life. Would you be happy? Would you be happy? Would you be happy? Will you be content with the life that you lived? Knowing that there's this fear of failure or fear of success or fear of being perceived or fear of whatever fear you have, will you be happy that you allowed that fear to win? Would you be happy that you allowed this fear to take over, to dictate your life? Would you be happy? Now, this is me posing a question to you. Would you be happy? I always think about this. And my thing is, when it happens, I, for me, do not want to be filled with regret. That will, oh my gosh, that's gonna break my entire heart. I don't want a life filled with regret. I don't want to find myself filled with regret. That would crush my soul, literally. And that for me is where it's at with regret. Even when I do things, I'm very intentional. Even when I'm living my life right now, I am very intentional with what I do. I think about it. I meditate, and sometimes don't overthink things, honestly. Just go with the flow. I go with the flow of life, but sometimes I do think like, do I want to do this? Am I going to regret it? I don't want to regret it. But I also don't want to regret not living. Do you understand what I'm saying? So, those are my biggest fears. I just thought, let me share. What are your fears? Please do let me know in the comment section below. And let's talk about it, guys. Fear is a thing. It exists. It's real. But let's not let it win. Let's not let it stand in our way of greatness. Let's not let it dictate our lives, right? If anything, it's actually there to protect you. It's a mechanism, protection mechanism, but like, don't let it hinder you. Don't let it stop you. Don't let it be the thing that's your stumbling block. And with that said, beautiful soul, may goodness and grace lead you to greater heights of success. And may you break those barriers that are formed by fear. Namaste.